Hello, and welcome to one of our virtual events for the Right Women Book Fest 2025. I'm author H.L. Brooks, aka Heather Brooks, and
I'm Cardyn. Did I freeze? It
you
looks like
froze, but keep talking.
I'm
Keep talking.
Cardyn. I'm just
Maybe
and this is
not
it's
freeze.
a better freeze frame than
It's
the
a
one
little
before.
better.
But I'm Cardyn Brooks, outreach coordinator, director for the Right Women Book Fest.
And we have several YA authors from the Right Women Book Fest. They're on. They're going to introduce themselves, and then Cardin's going to ask them a question, and that will get things rolling. And welcome. We are so happy to have you on here. Why don't you go ahead and let's see. This will be everybody introduce all at once. Why don't, since I have a list here, I'll just go. Let's start with E.R. Munley. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm E.R. Munley. I am a YA, upper YA fantasy author. My current series are the Statera Cycle, and I'm finishing out the New Ancients duet here in November. The next book comes out on the 11th of November. Both are upper YA, and urban fantasy. My day job is that I'm an English teacher in wild and wonderful West Virginia.
Okay. And Sam?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Schreiber. I am also an upper YA fantasy author. My trilogy, The Engineer Chronicles, had its debut book come out in December of 24. So I'm currently working on getting book two finished up, which should be out uh, early 26, say. Still being hedgy on the date. But I did just release the audiobook for book one of the Chronicles, which is called Forgotten Anna. So I'm
Yay!
very excited about that. That was a lot of fun. And by day, I wear a corporate tech hat, and I live in Maryland with my family.
Thank you so much. And JD?
Hi, I am JD Donnelly. I am the author and artist behind Painting Dragon Feathers. My day job is I go around to conventions, anime cons, science fiction cons, fantasy cons, comic cons, and I sell my artwork and now my books. My debut, young adult paranormal fantasy, okay, didn't blur, is came out in 2024. Audiobook released in 2025. It is a an adult paranormal fantasy with lots of wit and humor. I also have a middle grade dragon story in the works, and I'm
Oh,
just overall creature
love
fanatic.
dragons. Yeah, I love dragons.
Dragons.
And Zara?
I am Zahra Jons. I write contemporary-ish YA and contemporary adult. But um, yeah, and right now I'm heavily working on some really hard edits to um, another contemporary YA with um, time travel and reincarnation elements, and it's
Ooh.
titled "Sunny with a Chance of Death." And I'm hoping that we will get through the edits, and then we'll be working and getting through the cover design, etc., for it to release in the latter half of next year. And my day job is now working on my publishing company. I took early release from the government and officially retire in December.
Well,
Wowza!
congratulations.
So
That actually sounds like a
Yeah.
Congratulations!
great opportunity.
it is. My anxiety meds are cut in half. My
Wow.
yeah, it's just great. It was a really good decision for me, and it's going to allow me to focus on my writing and my editing and my author's publishing company.
Bravo.
Fantastic. Thank you
Bravo.
so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
And today's panel, since we have all YA authors, is Building Worlds That Resonate with Tweens and Teens. And now that we've introduced everybody, Cardin is going to jump in. Cardin Brooks, fellow author and co-organizer of the Right Women Book Fest, is going to jump in and start asking questions.
Oh, so again, thanks to all of you for contributing to the success of the Right Women Book Fest and for agreeing to have this conversation. And so I started out as a reader first. So I'm always interested in what inspired, prodded, motivated you to write that first story, and not even necessarily the first story that you published or was published, but what was there an event or a story you read or some experience that just made you decide I'm going to pursue it? And so it's open to whoever wants to start.
I'm gonna
Okay,
pick
I'll
some.
start.
Okay.
So the first desire for me to write something in YA or for tweens and teens is my kid at about 12, 13 was struggling to find books they wanted to read. My child is non-binary, which is why I'm using they. And so I kind of like, well, what are you looking to read? I was trying to help them find something to read.
Yeah.
I was already writing things for adults that I wanted to read. And so I just went in and said, okay, let me write something. I wrote something for them. They loved it. They shared it with friends. Their friends loved it. And so that kind of led to me going, okay, I can write YA as well.
Yeah.
So, and then the first one that was actually published was I needed to share my feelings when my mother was sick with cancer. It turned out that, in the end, the book called Waiting for Normal had nothing to do with the mother having cancer, but it did dwell on the idea of when somebody in your family gets cancer, it's a waiting game. Everything gets put on hold. So those were, the two motivations. Something that my kid wanted to read. And as non-binary, they were kind of like, I don't want romance.
Right.
So, and then
Right.
exactly, they're like, I don't get that stuff. And then, something in my life that I felt needed to be shared, not about the disease itself, but about that, hey, everything gets put on hold. So, and it won an award. So I think it came out well.
Oh, that's a great origin story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
JD, ER, Sam, should I do eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
I mean, I'll talk.
Thanks, ER. Yes.
So I started out as a fan fiction girly. Like me and my friends were fan fiction writers back in the golden age of fanfiction.net. And Zanga and all of the Live Journal, like just naming archaic platforms at this point, right?
Throwback.
But my publishing journey started, and I talked about this on our mini-sode that we did like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That my co-writer for our first series, which was the Zahra cycle, this is book 1. She was living in China at the time. She was teaching in Wuhan and just wanted to have people who spoke English to speak to. And we had known each other in college, and so we did and still do like a weekly Skype date where we just get on video and just chat. And she had sent me the original manuscript for a book that is coming out in January. She's almost done editing it now. And just wanted feedback on it. And one of us just said offhand, wouldn't it be so fun just to write something together? And we kind of just threw a couple of ideas around and got off the call. It was a Sunday, so she went to bed and I just kind of stewed on it. And it just wouldn't leave me alone. And I had a student teacher at the time, so I was doing everything in my power to just not be in the room so that my student teacher could like have full control. And I was just in the library and I opened up a document and just words fell out of me onto the page. And bless Ruth's heart, because she woke up to a 1.5-page document with the title, How Serious Were You? And that document ended up being the Arza clan for The Price of Broken Magic. And she didn't immediately like ghost me, and we ended up writing 4 books together.
Awesome.
No, that's a great 2 for 2 with great origin stories. Let's go 3 for 3. Come on, JD, tell us. We know it's going to be good.
I can distinctly remember the very first story I ever wrote. It was third grade writing assignment in Catholic school, back when I was in Catholic school. And I wrote about Beanie Babies. But
talk about throwbacks, yeah.
So
listen, my fan fiction was Sailor Moon, so you're good.
I basically wrote Beanie Baby fan fiction for a school assignment in third grade. But I've always been a huge creature fan. Like my favorite movie in preschool was Jaws. And when I was a youngin', I wanted to be a marine biologist or a paleontologist or a zoologist. But once I got bit by that writing bug, though, been churning out words ever since. And now I use all that creature knowledge as writing fodder and for world building and character design. And fantastic. So I'm always a huge fan of I always tend to gravitate more towards creatures and non-human characters. In fact, I learned from a congoer a fun term called xenofiction. Xenofiction is any literature written from a non-human perspective. That can be your toys, your animals, your aliens, your robots. If it's not human, it's xenofiction.
Oh, that's great. I'd never heard that term before.
Yeah, neither had I. Thank you, convention goer. Thank you, random citizen.
Sharing the knowledge.
So I've always because I've just always, like I said, been a huge creature fan. And so I'm writing, I'll be honest, I don't necessarily go out of my way to write. I'm writing specifically YA. I'm writing specifically middle grade. I write the story I want to tell. And then in editing, I will tone it up or down appropriately, because I also feel you should not talk down to your younger readers.
Right.
So I just write the story I want to read, because I am just a teenage brain in a old decrepit body that has anxiety and pays bills. So so that's why as for my publishing journey, I was querying in the querying trenches in traditional publishing for a long time. I got a lot of nibbles. I got a lot of near misses.
Right.
And after I got to this point, it's like, my day job is I go to Comic Cons and anime cons and I sell my artwork there. I'm already engaging with the audience I want to reach. I'll just go the indie route. Smart. So I was very fortunate to have a tribe of people help me. I was able to, I wrote the story for my debut Crypto Zoo. I wrote the story and illustrated the cover. Yeah. My lovely fiance, who's technically minded, helped with the technical formatting. And I had a good beta reader group that helped out, and with editing and such. I was able to find a freelance editor through SCBWI, the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, to help give the story a kick in the pants. And I lucked out and got some amazing voice actresses to work on the audiobook that released in 2025, back in March.
So busy. You had a solid foundation. You actually didn't need traditional publishing because you had access or knew people to fit all your pieces. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm just trying to get it out there. That's the hurdles I'm jumping right now.
Yeah.
You have very nice branding. Like your booth looks very nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was a magnet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, decade of working in artist alleys. People are visually inclined.
Yeah.
I do intend to make because I do presentations for I'm in the Western Pennsylvania chapter of SCBWI. I do intend to make a panel at some point, because I do presentations for them on occasion on how to sell like a con artist. Basically, how to make your booth visually engaging and get your.
I love that.
When I get newbies come up to me like, "Hey, I want to sell in artist alleys." I'm like, "Okay, go walk around the artist alley right now.
Right.
Look at all the booths that attract you.
Right.
Steal their ideas, study what brought
inspired. You'll be inspired by their ideas. Right.
It would motivate you. All right, with 3 for 3, Sam, you're going to bring it on home.
No pressure. I would say I am the less artistic side of the coin, along with JD, in terms of first story written back in 5th grade. It was a ghost story that was basically fan fiction of the R.L. Stine Goosebumps series.
Oh, nice.
Although I read a lot, I was a very voracious reader, and some of my fondest memories from being a kid are reading books with my grandmother before bed when I would visit her in the summers. And so I read everything from fairy tales to I got really into Agatha Christie when I was like 7 or 8. Like what? I don't know. That was weird. I read a lot of Stephen King and R.L. Stein. Yes, Stephen King and
Right,
R.L. Stein
right.
at similar ages because my mother was really into horror. So I was kind of really a genre jumper and just I wanted to read everything.
Yeah.
And growing up in the 90s in school,
Mhm.
there was a lot of gamification of reading with
Yes.
Book It and Pizza Hut and
Yeah.
this point system that I think a lot of schools had where you would get points for being
Yes.
able to take um, tests about books to prove that you
Yes.
had read them. So like
Yes.
Gone with the Wind was a book I read in 6th grade because I was like, I need the points. It's such a big point book. And so I read very widely.
Yeah.
Um, I ended up going to university for literature where I
Mm.
read very widely. And the whole time I'm on fanfiction.net and doing round robins with my high school friends, very
Yeah. Yeah.
similarly to these ladies. And I wrote the first draft of my debut novel. And since we're sharing, here she is.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Oh yeah,
the
I
first
remember that
draft
cover.
the year after, thank you, the year
Yes.
after college. So some time ago.
Oh, wow.
And then it went on a shelf and I wrote a couple more things and tried to find a job and live a life.
Right.
And um, I don't, I got to a point after I had a career and I felt kind of like a stable person and
Right.
I had gotten married and I was like, okay, I'm a solid adult now. I can follow my dreams again. And I was thinking a lot, very hard about what to pull off my shelf or whether I should just write something new.
Right.
And this story had never let me go, never.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, why not? I
Right.
completely rewrote it. It used to be a portal fantasy,
Okay.
and major plot lines did not exist. So I completely rewrote it. Um, and dove into the trenches, got really sick and tired of waiting for the
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
And I had a writing coach ask me, well, do you believe in it? And I was like, of course I
Right.
do.
Right.
It's my
Right.
baby. And she said, well, do you believe in it enough to do it yourself? Like, do you
Mm.
need someone else to believe in it in order
Mm-hmm.
for this to be real, or do you have enough faith?
Right.
Because also my day job is running a company. She was like, so I know you know how to like do the
Right.
business
Right.
side.
Right.
So do you believe in it enough? And I worked through some of my internalized biases against
Yes.
self-publishing that
Yeah.
kind of were part and parcel to
Yes.
coming of age when it was new,
Yes.
and decided to go the indie publishing route, which I've been very, very happy with because I absolutely know that going to the market with
Mm-hmm.
not a standalone that has series potential, but an actual trilogy that has to be sold as a trilogy
Right.
and is high fantasy, um, and competing with ACOTAR and Fourth Wing with the
Yes.
dragons and everything
Yes.
else,
Yes.
it
Yes.
was just, it was never going to happen. I mean, not never, but it just
No.
wasn't going to happen on a
Right.
timeline I wanted.
Right.
So,
Long odds.
exactly. So I decided I did have enough faith in it for myself and did it myself. So
Oh,
now we're
bravo.
working through.
I think it's really
Bravo.
interesting how many um roadblocks we kind of throw up for ourselves in terms of like, when am I allowed to write a book? When am I allowed to publish a book? Like, okay, now I'm an adult. I've done all the things that were on that checklist. Am I allowed to do the book now? Can I write the book now? And now that I've written the book, am I allowed to publish it now? Like, you are not alone in that story. In fact, a lot of what I talk about and deal with, and a lot of the reason I started the Right Women Network, which used to be Women Authors of Maryland, was because there's so many women in particular that I don't think men have the same problem, honestly. I think men go forth and do whatever the hell they want without all these tests for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I want us to be. I want to be like, you can do it, like that is something that I think is really important that you brought like that up in a way. I mean, in a roundabout way, you brought up these benchmarks you had for yourself in order to just publish your book. And I just want to encourage anybody watching this, particularly women. I'm not against men. It's just that they seem to don't have these issues as much to stereotype a little bit. But I think that if you're watching this, please take the lesson from these ladies who have just gone out there and made their dream happen. And I think that that's a really good, important thing to note while we're having this conversation, because it's a thread that runs throughout the Right Women Network, the Right Women Book Fest. It is a thread that is important to Cardyn and I, because we like to encourage women to get to that next stage of whatever it is they're doing. And I will shut up now and let Cardyn answer that question.
Well, if I may jump in, I also think to tie it back to writing for teens and tweens, I am confident I can speak for all of us, but feel free to chime in, that a large part of why I am so passionate about writing for this age group, although my 85-year-old grandmother loved the book too, so it's for everyone, but why I love it so much is exactly that empowerment and being able to tell stories for kids, they are kids, that help them find their voice, their place in the world, a vision for what they want to achieve, and kind of inspire them to go out and conquer whatever it is that they want to conquer. So that's been a big draw to this age group and this.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, there's something just like that's outwardly more empowering in the YA sphere when it comes to writing. Like I've noticed that adult books are more about subtlety and nuance, whereas like YA is more get out there, slay the dragon, save the world. You can do it, which is really appealing to kids who are still trying to figure out their path. Like just telling them you can do this, go do it.
Do any of you have main boy character? There was a big discussion on Thread early this year, maybe it was, about how there are no books out there, YA books for boys. Do any of you have a boy main character?
Not in my debut. Well, I would say not a boy. Like in my debut, the main character is female, and the other kind of main character is an adult Jersey Devil. But in my dragon story, the main character is a 14-year-old.
Well, my response often was in these threads, and I had to get away from the discussion because it was kind of bothering me a little bit, was why does it have to be like, why aren't we getting boys to buy books with girl main characters is the question, because that is one of the things that, again, I started the Right Women Network for, is because women in publishing face things that men do not face. For example, it is better now. Some men will buy books by women, but many years that was not true. And it's still not equal to the amount of women who will buy books by men. And so I think the question should be, and I kept trying to get people, well, what is a book for a YA boy book? Like what? I needed people to tell me what that meant. And this is why I had to leave the conversation, because nobody really could.
Hand. Go ahead. I'm going to put my teacher hat on for a second.
Yes, that's right. You're around them
literally
all the time.
My daily.
Okay. I would love some expert.
The scope of what is considered a boy book to teenagers is so much narrower, and I think it's opening up now. In real time, it's kind of starting to open up as like. And I say this very generally, kids are becoming more accepting of diversity and more accepting of things outside of their sphere than this is my 14th year of teaching, so like this is a decade of interactions with teenagers talking. That it's getting more acceptable to kind of branch out from that closed sphere for teenagers, especially since our media is starting to branch out a little bit more, kind of forcefully branching out.
Right.
But there's still this stigma of what constitutes a boy book. And like I can tell you that most of my boys will not pick up the same books that the girls will pick up because of like embedded stereotypes.
Okay. That's what my assumption was on Threads when I was reading that. And of course, maybe in my 20s, I would not have taken that leap. I would have been like, yeah, there needs to be more books with boy characters and boy doing boy stuff. And then, but now I'm like, I've deconstructed enough to go, hey, why are we saying there aren't enough boy books? Like, what does that mean exactly? Because, there's plenty
Well,
of boys who are writing
well, and
boys.
I think it also comes down to we just as women through history have had to fit into boy molds to make things work, and boys have never had to do the other way around.
Right.
So it's kind of starting to crack the mold a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it still exists and it's still really toxic in all realms.
May I?
Yeah,
But that's what it's this mold that we're still trying to break out of as to what constitutes a boy book versus a girl book.
Yes, JD.
If I may chime in, do you think it's possible that boys may gravitate more towards the graphic novel side? Because manga
They definitely
is
do.
very big, and a majority, like literally, it's manga and a lot of Japanese series are divided. Like there's literally a whole genre called shonen, which is boy stories, and literally the main characters usually vary from ages 10 to late teens, and it's the main characters. And I feel like American comic.
Boys tend to gravitate more toward a visual story versus a written story as well. And so I think some of that comes back to expectations of boys versus expectations of girls within that learning sphere. Of like we're expected to think, we as women are expected to think more outside the box in order to make things happen. And this is all obviously very generalized, but boys are way more likely to go for the very straightforward story. So I tend to getting them to pick up that more complex, nuanced story is a lot harder than here's a comic book about racism in the guise of rats. Like
it's kind of up to parents to encourage their boys to broaden their horizons and look for more complex stories, because I don't think at this, especially right now, we have an ability. I don't know in the educational environment if you have the ability to nudge boys in that way at this moment.
I try.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just mean there's a lot of constraints placed on teachers right now, and I think it's really important. And unfortunately, anyway, thank you everybody for indulging me in that little part of the YA discussion, because it's something that's been kind of in the back of my mind and bothering me for a while. Like, okay, because I want to be open to the idea that maybe there aren't enough of boy books, but I'm like, but there's a ton of books, so like, what is a boy?
Harry Potter, Percy
exactly.
Jackson.
So
okay,
so that helps
boy.
a little bit. I do think too that there's this certain division that certain aspects of our society really likes, that division between boy and girl, and that's why you end up with things like Gamergate, where a woman is just completely obliterated by the male community for speaking out in a way that doesn't highlight them in a nice way. Or there's also like the whole thing where are you really a fan of comic books? Are you really a fan of Star Wars? That whole ownership of those kinds of things that boys consider theirs, whereas girls are like, generally, again, we're generalizing. We realize this is, but we have to talk about it. Or, I mean, it's real. It may be our own personal experiences, but they're taken in a clump there. But I think that's a really these are really deep topics, and I think that this is a good segue, if Cardyn doesn't mind, to segue into the worlds that you build.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that's a perfect segue for world building, because that does give you a context, like how, I guess, whichever one of you wants to start with, maybe talking about how you approach even starting to construct a world. Like,
and one that that you think teens will want to immerse themselves in.
So I don't know if Sam or Zahra want to start out with that, but however you want to go. Just, I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling. Like when I read fantasy, I'm like, as a reader, I'm enjoying it, but as an author, I'm like, wow, you must be a genius, because to make everything work. So how does that even begin?
Why don't we
Uh,
go ahead?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So my story actually started from the world. The
Mm,
premise started from the world. So I had in college learned about the concept of Pangea, the idea that all
mhm,
the continents need to be
mhm,
connected, right? Which is where we get the cradle of life from and all of that. And growing up Christian, I was raised with the Genesis story and the creation story of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden.
mhm,
And I had this idea of like, what would a world look like where the original sin never happened, right? Like where the
mm,
bad stuff that then created our world happened. And what if the Pangea never split apart? What if we had one continent and things were peaceful? Like, what would that kind of world be like? And I started from there and then took bits and pieces of inspiration, introduced the world's first murder because we're authors. That's what we do. And the world kind of came from that concept. And at the time, similar to what I believe JD was saying, I wasn't starting from a place of I'm writing this for teens or I'm writing this
mm,
for adults
mhm,
or any age group in mind. I was just building the world,
yeah,
and I started from there. I wanted it to be a matriarchy. I wanted it to be peaceful, no weapons, no violence.
mhm,
The magic system was built from the concept that what ultimately helps humans be peaceful is their connection to one another. So
mm,
the magic of the world is the magic of that connection, and the ruler of the world, the Atma, which is
yeah, yeah,
in character and her family, is connected deeply to that connection and that magic. And what happens when it starts to break? What happens when there's been violence and a disconnection?
nice,
How does the world behave
right.
in that world? So I kind of call it like a utopia turning into a topia. It's got a lot of dystopian themes and it's similar to dystopias in a lot of those
Right,
ways, but it was a utopia, so I don't
gotcha.
know.
Oh, I like that.
Um, yeah, so then as I kind of had crafted the plot and the
Right,
story and the
right,
characters, and decided that it would be for teens, and I wrote it at 22, so I
right,
was
right, right.
still
You want to cross
barely
the finish,
barely
right?
beyond a teen
Yes,
myself.
yes,
What I was most drawn to was the idea of choosing who you're going to be, right?
mm,
Graduating from college or high school or going
right,
into high school, right? There's a lot of questions in that
right,
early adolescence and late adolescence about who are you? Who do you want to be?
right.
And the choices that you make are so serious. If you take this elective, your whole world is being decided. Um, and so taking that concept of choice and how what you choose is what determines who you are.
Yeah,
That was kind of the heart and soul of the
yes,
story. And so that made sense to me for
yeah. That's
why.
really logical.
Um, and so then I crafted the world around that. And I took a lot of inspiration from Disney and Pixar in the sense that people don't think about the fact that they're watching fantasy, like really intricate fantasy worlds
Right,
when they
right,
watch Disney and Pixar. Like you go into Toy Story, it's a world with toys.
right,
And you understand the mechanics of this magic
right,
system or this world. You understand, the whole setup of this alternate reality, um, the fairy tales,
right,
you could use any example. They're all
right.
fantasy. And so I really took a lot of inspiration from that and really tried to find places where how those worlds connected to me as a kid and to my
Yes,
friends,
yes,
what made them feel familiar even though it was so unfamiliar, so
right.
fantastical, and how could I then build in that kind of world building that felt easy and natural rather than trying to go for a very hard
Right,
like
right,
we have
right. No,
hard
no, that's
sci-fi
a
and soft
really,
sci-fi.
yeah,
There's like
no,
the
that's a
hard
really great
fantasy versus
approach.
the soft fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, that's a great explanation. Thank you for that. JD, did you want to?
I was gonna say I could paint off that a bit is because I actually do present at cons a whole panel about world building, not
Hmm,
specifically young adult world building, but just world building in general.
right.
But uh something I like to kind of think about is, yeah, and I tell people also when writing non-human characters, because I do a panel about creature design and all
Yes.
that, I say like, even if your characters aren't human, they have to have human like wants, needs,
Mm.
goals, desires, and like there are just some universal things that people go through that
Right.
people connect with, regardless of whether the
Right.
entity they're reading about
Right.
is teenage boy or a chupacabra or a robot
Right.
fairy. Um, and so I think it's more like if you touch like the core of like a universal idea, it's like I
Mm.
also ask people like in my panels, like, do you know the difference between sympathy and empathy?
Mm.
Sympathy is when you can say like, oh, I have not been through this situation, but I can kind of guess what you're
Right.
feeling and experience. Empathy is like, oh, I have been through this exact situation that you
Yes.
have and can therefore um fe understand your feelings. So whether it's sympathy or empathy, there's still universal appeal. So like
Yeah.
in my novel Crypto Zoo, it's an adult paranormal fantasy. It's about a young chupacabra and she's kind of trying to find her place in the pack. Like she's like, okay, what's my pecking where I am in the pecking
Right.
order, dealing with some catty, mean girl-esque pack mates.
Yes.
And her she deals with the trauma, and one of the main themes of Crypto Zoo is she deals with trauma because her best friend dies in chapter 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Her. Um
Spoiler.
that's where the Kindle sample ends, so I'm gonna stop spoiler.
Right. Right.
But then she's dealing with the PTSD and the trauma afterward and have and survivor's guilt. But also the other like universal theme I kind of tapped into was in Crypto Zoo is she's her adoptive father's a Sasquatch. Can we relate that our male parental figures are Sasquatches? No. But something she's dealing with is he disappears, and that's the main problem with the plot is he's vanished and bad
Right.
things are gonna happen unless he's found.
Right. Right.
Um
I don't know. There
is
might
she
be a few Sasquatch dads out there.
but she's going around and she's trying to find him. We gotta save Papa, save the
Yes.
world. But then
Yes.
she's
Yes.
finding out more and more about him that she didn't know. And that's a universal thing that us, like, we as growing up, like, wait, our parents are human? They have claws? They
Right.
have
Right.
skeletons in their closets?
Yes.
And, like the whole, being a cryptid, being scared, being a outer, group that is vilified,
Mm.
rightfully so, wrongfully so, that's debatable, and
Right.
it's all a matter of perception.
Yeah.
And Cleo humans are monsters, so it's getting over fears. So yeah, like again, like it's you got to tap into just universal wants and needs and
Right. Right.
stuff. Like in my one panel, I talk about Wings of Fire, the dragon, because we talk about dragons, and I'm
Yes.
like, it's love triangles after dealing with the after effects of war and racial prejudices and government
Yeah.
and politics, but they're all just dragons.
Right. Right.
Everything's
Right.
better with dragons.
Of course.
And what's there a boy wouldn't like in this story? I mean, like seriously, that's a compelling story. It covers a lot of ground.
I will
Yeah.
say it might be a degree to like I will say when I've noticed a trend in my selling of my book because again this is my first novel, so
Right.
this is my personal experience, is I get about 50-50 or maybe even a little bit more guys buying my book, and it might be the chupacabra trumps
Yeah.
or like female.
Yeah.
Right.
But also, I
Yeah.
would say visually, maybe too. And again, generalization. But going back to what you were saying about the manga and all that, and graphic novels, that I just remembered at the book fest, your artwork was so compelling, so like drawing me in that I would think that if somebody that maybe that even before somebody reads a word, if they're more visual, that maybe might make them more open.
Well, we say to acknowledge your point, yeah, we don't. They say don't judge a book by its cover. We do
Right.
judge a book by its
Yes.
cover.
Oh yeah, we do.
Um,
Everybody
budget.
does.
If you're indie publishing a book, put your budget towards your editor and your cover artist,
Yeah.
and stay away from AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But to counterpoint the whole, I don't think it's with manga specifically.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily a solely visual thing. It could be that is the driving factor, but the fact that and part of it is a cultural thing, like
Mm.
Japanese culture in general, their kids mature at a faster rate. Like they're
Mm.
going to preschool on their own and like
Yep.
they're considered adults like after middle school. You technically don't have to go to high school in Japan to be considered adult. You can enter the
Gotcha.
workforce at age 15.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
and I think it's the idea is that they're given the keys to their future are a lot younger.
More agencies,
Mhm.
Yeah, their
agency sooner.
agency is handed to them a lot. Or that's like a cultural thing. So I think that's why those kind of stories, especially that's why I said like in shonen stories, particularly like look at Naruto and
Gotcha.
Fullmetal Alchemist and I'm kind of dating myself now with the
No, that's
manga
okay.
and anime I grew up with.
You're
You're
dating
still
me
younger than
too.
I
It's
am.
fine.
Or
You're still
Dragon
younger than
Ball
I am.
Z and like Dragon Ball Z, it's like all camaraderie as much as they're wailing on each other and beat each other up. Half the time, the main character has such golden retriever energy.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, a lot of these shonen heroes, they have such golden retriever energy and so darn friendly, they convert half their villains into friends and allies. So it's not just like, oh, it's all ultra violent guys
Right.
wailing kung fu fighting each other.
Right.
No, there actually is like a lot of these stories do
Right.
uphold this like morals of friendship and empathy and reaching out and helping people and all that. So I think it's just more like I think it's a cultural thing. They don't, those stories, because they're from a Japanese cultural lens, don't talk down to their readers. Like they don't,
Right.
like they say boys manga, but they mean more just like, oh, this is more action oriented and more likely a male main character, as opposed to like, this is for boys.
Right. I got you.
Lowercase boy.
Yes. Yes. No, that's totally logical.
Yeah.
Zahra, I think I know a little bit of where you're going to start with your world building because it sounded like your kid is like, okay, I'm going to do this thing for my kid, but maybe more specifically, what might have, what informs your kind of world building?
Okay, so a lot of I do write contemporary. So, but there's still world building because children and adults do not live in the same world, even if they're in the same house. And I think, and I'm going to admit, I am 55. I am well away from my own childhood by several times over. But as an author, you have to understand, if you are writing for tweens and teens, that they are not living in the same world that you are as an adult. They have restrictions you do not have. They have boundaries that you do not have. And so with mine, I do have supernatural elements, and I have to make them fit into that contemporary, and they have to fit there. That supernatural element still has to speak back to something that is very real in a teenager's life. In Little Pink Book, it is social acceptance. The character finds this magic book, and it can help them to be, they're able to use that to help them be more like what is in the book called the Five, which are, the five girls that are at top of the social ladder at the high school. But there are costs involved with that. It's not always. So picking something that as an adult, you're like, I don't care if, I'm the cool person at work or not. I'm just going to sit there and do my job. That is not the reality for a lot of kids. That there's bullying happens in school to a degree that does not happen in the workforce. A lot of us have, we've developed thicker skin as we've aged, and that's something that children and teens and tweens don't have. And that recognition in anything, whether it's contemporary or fantasy, which you've already kind of touched on, is that it is from that point of view, and the world of a child, even no matter what, is not the same as an adult. And in order to speak to that child and have that child, teen, tween feel themselves represented in that world, that is something that you have to recognize and focus on whether you're building an entire world or just recognizing and building that character's world in the real world.
Oh, that's so. When you said it, I'm like, it was like an aha, but it felt so obvious. Like, oh, of course, they're living in they have different boundaries, different limits, all that. That's really important.
I also am an editor. I'm a freelance editor, and there are writers and authors who send me stuff and they're like, this is for YA. And I'm reading, I'm like, this is not YA.
Right.
You have stuck a 30-year-old in a 16-year-old's body. That is not going to work. You have got this 16-year-old in a 30-year-old's world without the problems. And so that is a lot of the feedback. And that's one of the reasons I brought it up, is because that is something that some authors who traditionally write for adults don't think about when they're writing. They're like, I'm just going to make the character 16 and that's the only thing I have to do. And that is not the only thing you have to do to write for a younger audience.
That's so interesting you say that too, because even when I review books, I actually have a category called YA for non-YAs, because I don't read a lot of YA, but when I read YA, but until you said it, that was the first time that I was really clear on why I even created that category, because I just was going by the feeling of sometimes reading something that claims it's YA, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like it's YA. It feels like it's YA written for adults who want to read YA.
Yeah.
Which, no shame, but then it's
no shame, but I think it needs to be called new adult. But
something I encountered in the querying trenches in the traditional publishing sphere that I thought was rather arbitrary was there were some of these agents and editors were very stringent, like, oh, your character's this age, that means it's a young adult. Your character's this age, that means it's a middle grade. Like, and I'm like,
and that's not the case.
That applies to female authors and authors of color and authors of queer books, that they so often get shoved into YA when they're really not YA. Like, I mean, how many years was I specifically, there's a Chinese American author. It's oh my God, what's the title of it? It's got a red cover, Iron Widow.
Okay.
Whose book was marketed YA, and it's definitely not YA. And she says it's definitely not YA. The second one, Heavenly Tyrant, literally has some very not YA things in it. But because she was an author of color, a queer author, she got shoved into that
female
box.
protagonist.
Female protagonists too fall into that. Just because it's a certain thing doesn't make it that thing.
Right.
And kind of another example that I like to call it a lot too is Stranger Things. When they were shopping Stranger Things around to the various studios, a lot of the studios were like, oh, we'll take it if you cut the kids out and make Sheriff Hopper the main character, and like basically make it like, every other X-Files knockoff.
Right.
But the
First of all the appeal for Gen Xers that came from that show, which was being able to relate to the Atari and to the vibe and to the aesthetic for people my age, was based on the fact that we were that age when that aesthetic existed.
And also
when those things existed.
So it's finally Netflix. They're like, okay, you can keep the kids, you get creative control. And the kids is what drew the audience in. And the fact they are allowed to act like actual kids.
Children, yes.
And they were the same age as their characters, so they authenticity I think that's a big part of it too that skewed the landscape. Is there was the period in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, it existed before that too, but very heavy teen media going out with WB and the CW, and all of them were adults pretending to be children. And I think that really messed up the YA genre for writing, because people were so used to seeing 20 to 25-year-olds act like 16-year-olds in TV shows where it's super dramatic and high stakes and not reality in terms of what these teens are facing. So you have adults pretending to be teens in situations where the teens are pretending to be adults. And I think it just really messed up people's perception of like actual teenagers and how they think and behave, or actual preteens and how they think and behave.
I think
that really
you see it a lot of media. I feel you see like sanitized, or like, oh, we're gonna rosy lens younger characters, or like, oh, we can't have them behaving like, we can't have them being too crass or too bullying or too Have you ever been to a school? Have you interacted with actual kids?
Exactly.
I talk about in my creature design panel, I compare Troll Hunters. The Netflix series Troll Hunters is based on a book by Guillermo del Toro. The book is YA. The animated series is Y7. They toned down everything in the series. They even made the trolls rounder and cuddlier. Whereas in the book version, because it's Guillermo del Toro, there's a lot of body horror and there's a lot of, the trolls behave like folkloric trolls and are eating pet cats and kids.
Yes.
But like also too, the kids get the room to act like actual teenagers with hormones and crass and snark. And because they're acting like actual teenagers, they get to interact with actual, because of the darker tone, they get to deal with real problems like hovering parents, domestic violence, abusive parents, like darker themes that kids, that society would like, oh no, of course we don't want to talk on that. Like kids deal with that. They gotta sharing stories. The show, these there are characters in similar situations to you. They can get through it, so can you. Like that's what stories are about.
Yes.
ER, I bet you have some insight about the teen brain.
This is also actually a really good segue into my world building. So,
yes.
My world building all comes out of hyperfixations. Obviously,
I mean, there are many adults who can relate to hyperfixation.
It was a hyperfixation on just ideas we had thrown around for my newest series. It was a hyperfixation on witch history. And bringing all of those elements into the boundaries that kids would face is the way you make it relatable in my worlds. Like it's New Ancients is very dystopian, like magic, but there's religious persecution, there's xenophobia, there's this otherness that the characters are facing throughout, and really kind of trying to figure out who you are and stepping into your own power, and all of those things are very universal, especially in that teen space of figuring out who you are, stepping into your own self and your own skin, and also dealing with the big world around you because people expect you to be more adult.
Right.
But you're still kind of a kid.
Yes.
And you have to navigate these big ideas while still figuring it all out. And I think building that framework in there, even you can approach those big ideas like domestic violence or persecution and all of that stuff within the boundaries of that self-actualization, and building your world around a journey for the characters. And that really helps to make it relatable.
I mean, I feel a little speechless because all of your answers have dovetailed your experiences as authors, but also as readers and people who are studying YA literature. Are there any final comments or remarks you'd like to include? We've had such a great conversation. As Heather knows, she and I could go on forever, but we know people have lives.
We hate the time limits of these things, but we know they're realistic.
But this has just been so insightful and dynamic and entertaining and fun and all the good stuff. So I guess I just want to open up any last remarks or comments.
I have a slightly lighter note to add around world building. Absolutely quadrupling down on everything everyone said about relatable experiences, emotions, goals, fears, hopes, dreams. That's the human connection that my story is about. But I also think it's important when you're looking at world building to look at the everyday moments that can be relatable as well. I think when I hear criticism from some people about, I couldn't relate to that story because the culture is different, the religion's different, the gender is different, the whatever is different. I'm like, so you didn't actually pay attention to the story then? Because I also have that rushed feeling in the morning before I have to get ready for work and my kid is not listening and whatever. So I could relate to that.
Right.
Like, space captain who was trying to wrangle her rowdy crew.
Right.
I don't have that experience, but I have that experience. And I think when you're looking, especially with fantasy, at your world building, it's really important to also think about some of those moments. Like my character has to pee sometimes.
Right.
You gotta pee, man. It's Just
Yeah,
part of the day.
It's just part of the day
I
for
I
all
do
of us.
feel speculative fiction is hard, like, and when I was in college, some of the professors were like, "Oh, it's fantasy. Oh, it's sci-fi." Like they're a little poo-poo on it, but like I do feel speculative fiction is honestly a bit harder to write because
Yes.
not only do you got to layer all the things you would have in a
Yes.
contemporary story, you then got
Yes.
to also wrangle all the magic rule systems, the
Yes.
biology, the cultural things
Yes.
that you're building from scratch, or not. So you got to layer all that top. But yeah, so that was paying off you, Sam. My final
Mhm.
word of wisdom: write the
Yeah.
story you want to read.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
like like with CryptoZoo, like I like cryptids and such and creatures. And
Yeah.
so I was, how many like supernatural cryptid themed stories do you read where it's like, oh, kid goes out and finds cryptids, or
Right.
not Mulder and not Scully go out, or not
Mhm.
Sam and not Dean go out and
Right.
interact and try to
So
hunt down
JD,
these
are
monsters.
you in Pennsylvania
Yes,
then?
I am. I'm in
Okay.
Pittsburgh.
So did you know that there's a cryptid in Maryland called the Goat Man? I
Yes,
just
and
want to throw that out to you.
you guys also got the Snallygaster.
And the Snallygaster,
Yeah.
the Goat Man and the Actually, Goat
Uh,
Man's right near where actually the Beltsville research facility, which is
Yeah.
also where the
yeah.
story How I Learned to Drive partly takes place, which is a play
Yeah.
by
Mhm.
Paula Vogel. But
Yeah.
just to throw those two, since you're such a cryptid,
As my neck of the woods is the squonk, which is a very fun cryptid from lumberjack folklore.
I don't
All it
think I
does is
do that.
cry over how ugly it is.
Oh,
But
that's
the point I
hilarious.
was, but the point I was getting at though with like CryptoZoo is I wanted to write a story from the point of the cryptids.
Mhm.
They don't want to be seen. There's stakes if they are seen. They need to
Oh,
survive, and then
right.
the main character has to try to pretend to be a human in magical disguise in New York City and having to deal
Good
with the
luck with that.
weirdness of what humans have to put up with. Like she's like Lily's like psychondra is so funny. She's like, why do none of these pants have pockets?
That's
Relatable.
that again is a universal
Yes.
experience.
Relatable.
You don't have to
Well
be a
done.
cryptid to be able to know that experience. JD, why don't you take us on out? We can start with you about where people can find you and what your if you have something coming out or what you'd like them to look at first.
I just want to ask really quick, does ER and Zahra have any parting words of wisdom?
It's just funny that we've been talking about cryptid. I was at the World Oddities Expo yesterday in Baltimore,
Oh,
so like
hey, I
it's
did that one last
literally in
year.
the forefront of my brain. I bought a print that one of the vendors had of all of the West Virginia cryptids.
Oh,
That's why I was
hilarious.
like trying not to laugh really hard on
Does
Oh,
it
camera.
look does it
I
look
love
like a
it.
map?
It does. It's like
Does it
in
look
another room, or I'd bring it on camera
Right,
for
right,
you.
look
right.
like this?
Oh,
Oh,
it might.
it's all blurred up.
It's
Yeah,
all
it is
blurred
all
out.
blurred
No,
up.
I say I have
But it is that color, so I would bet it's the same
it's
person.
it's Star Cruiser Studios. This is the
That
Pennsylvanian
might be
one.
it. That
This
might
is the
be it.
Pennsylvanian one. So
Yeah, that might be the one.
yep. But he's a cool dude. He's a cool artist. But
Oh, that's
Well,
fantastic.
somebody please email me that contact because I'm going to need a Maryland and a Pennsylvania one.
I think he does have Maryland. He's slowly going through all the states.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
he's got
nice.
Maryland, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania right now.
Yeah,
Those
and
are the
they're
ones
really
he had
cool. It's like
yesterday.
archaic and
Perfect.
yeah.
This still my little cryptid loving heart.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
I actually
Okay.
vended the Baltimore World Oddities last year. So
Oh, nice.
I do the one in Pitt now. So but yeah, but
Okay.
what's your parting word of wisdom, ER, please?
Um, just follow what you're passionate about when you're writing, and then like go from there. If you have something that just feels like it has to get out of you, or you just are having fun with it, just
Mhm.
write it. Especially if you're not worried about querying. Like I did not have the time or mental health space for the query
Mhm.
process. I was always going to be indie. I have a friend whose trad debut comes out in March.
Mhm.
She's a debut romance author,
Mhm.
and I've been with her through her query process, and I knew immediately I did not have time for that. So
Good for you. Good for
so
you.
if you have a passion that you and just have fun, follow your passion, have fun. It's not like the starving artist is such a like terrible like it's a real thing, but it's
Yeah.
also like a terrible um stereotype, the
Yeah.
starving, like brooding artist.
Right.
You don't have to be starving or
No.
brooding. You can do
No.
whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So just follow a passion and write it.
That's
Great
great.
advice.
Zahra, you get to close us out with advice or final words.
So, as somebody who is older, that still writes for YA, is if you have tweens and teens in your life, listen to them.
Mm,
Listen to how they see the world. Like,
mm,
have conversations with them.
mhm,
I mean, my kid is 28 now, but since 2012, we have gone to conventions and
mhm.
conferences for my little publishing company, and I was at Monster Fest yesterday, and because I talk to kids and I listen to them.
Yeah,
They hover around the table and we have conversations.
yeah.
And it will really help inform you as to how they see the world. Because
Mm,
if you're going to world build
mhm,
for a tween, for a teen, you have to know how they see the world in order to
mm,
make it realistic for them. And the only way to do that is to listen to those of that age that are in your life. And I know that's one of the reasons I think that teachers can nail it so much and
mm,
so good when they write, because that's who they interact
All
with
day.
every day.
yeah.
But there are ways, if you have a story you want to tell and you think it would work, from for that age group,
Yeah.
is find that age group, find a way to, without it being stalkery, to interact with them.
Yeah.
um, and just to listen to them and have
Yeah.
conversations with them, because they have a lot to say, and it's a good way to learn about how they see the world so
Mhm.
you can world build for them.
Nice.
Great advice. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
So
that.
much
And
wisdom.
thank you everybody that came on today, and to Cardyn for leading the questions. I appreciate it so much. Thank you everybody for joining us for a virtual portion of the Right Women Book Fest, the YA Building Worlds that Resonate with Tweens and Teens with ER, Sam, JD, and Zahra. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm author H.L. Brooks, and I will put everybody's contact, their socials, and their websites down in the description. So please go check out their work. These make great holiday gifts for people. Everybody has a different way that they sell their things. It's great if they sell directly. Please buy directly from them. Often those are signed, or if you're doing Amazon, Barnes and Noble, also think about going to a local indie bookstore and asking them to pull in their books. And that's a great way you can support authors and artists. And we appreciate that so much when you do that. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining us. Happy reading.
Thank you.